Hey, it's Megan. Grab your coffee and let's have a combo. So, last week we talked about the perfect perimenopause diet, but there is no such thing. No two women will experience the same perimenopause transition. It would be absolutely impossible for everyone to eat the same diet and feel healthy. In the interest of learning and sharing, today I'm going to share with you 5 diets that I've tried, my mistakes and downfalls, so you can skip right to the good stuff, what works for your body. Right now, you probably have a pretty idea of your diet and how it's working for you. Do you feel good? Great. Press stop right now and listen to something else that's going to make you happy. If you don't feel amazing, what's off? Are you having energy crashes all day? Do you get bloated or gassy, have inconsistent poop? I would be proper here and say bowel movement, but we're all friends here. We can say poop. What do your labs look like? Do you have a panic attack every time that you go in and see your lab work from your doctor? Are you fatigued, sluggish, tired? What's your stress and sleep like? Are you thinking, is she asking me about all of these things that aren't related to food? Because everything I just talked about is affected by what you eat. Your hormones, your metabolic health, sleep, stress, immune system, gut health, all affected by what you eat. You could keep guessing about what's going on, or you could start collecting data. So, if you're thinking about your body and paying attention, we can collect data by taking notes, paying attention, getting lab work. All of these things give you a better picture of what's actually going on inside your body. So, what diets did I actually try? The first diet that I tried was a vegetarian diet, and this is the first time that I actually thought about the food that I was eating and made a decision about what to not to eat consciously for a reason. This was before I went to school. I had no idea how to eat properly, so I basically just stopped eating meat. That was it. No prep, no research, just no meat. Um, so at the time, that was a ton of processed foods. So pasta, pizza, snacks. I used to be a really big steak person. That's what my routine was. So with my ex-husband, we just went to a lot of steak restaurants. That's just what we did. So we continued to do that. And then I just ordered all the sides. Yeah, I know this is a terrible idea. So I was exhausted. I was cranky. I was hungry all the time. And I didn't eat beans, lentils, tofu, no other sources of protein. I don't think I was a really big egg eater then. Um, and I really didn't understand the idea of combining plant proteins. Suffice to say, terrible idea. It lasted about a month. To be fair, now I would do a completely different situation. I would work on my protein sources. I would be mindful about the variety of vegetables I got, more greens, uh, you know, less green bean and potato. That was basically what I was like green beans, potatoes. That's what I ate for like a month. It was really not a great situation. The next thing that I was very conscious about trying was the paleo diet. And this was the first time that I felt a big change in the way that my body felt and related it to food. Like consciously was like, oh, eating this way changes how I feel in my body. Isn't that interesting? Um, and so it was at the height of the paleo craze. Everyone was doing Whole 30. This was like the thing. Everyone was talking about it at work. So I had to try it. I did it. I felt better, but I was super dogmatic about it. I thought that it was the answer for everything and everyone, and I wanted everyone to be paleo. So, what does that mean? Basically, the thought process behind paleo is ancestral food. So, theoretically, nothing before industrialized agriculture was invented. So, meat, vegetables, some fruit. You're basically eliminating grains, legumes, sugar, dairy, wet potatoes. That eliminates a lot of stuff. So you feel better, but I don't necessarily attribute that to paleo being the end all be all. I would attribute it more to getting rid of a lot of processed foods that I've been eating before. You can't have cakes, you can't have pizza, pasta, none of that stuff is on the table anymore. Um, so I still needed to eat more often because I was hungry. And even eating this way, looking back, I know that my blood sugar wasn't super stable. Dates are still sugar at the end of the day. So not eating white sugar doesn't really do much if you're adding maple syrup and honey and dates to your basically every single day. I wish I had known then what my labs would have shown about me, about my blood sugar. There was no real starchy carbs, no legumes, and that meant not a ton of extra fiber happening in the diet. So you could throw in some avocados and raspberries on the paleo diet, but when you're out of season, like what are you filling up on? So I'll tell you, my friend, you fill up on fat. And that brings us to the keto diet. So the keto high fat diet kind of came around after the paleo diet, and this was the keto craze. Obviously, I did it because why not? So I was all about this. butter in my coffee, coconut in my smoothies, yogurt, bacon, coconut oil, chocolate. I loved this diet so freaking hard. I really leaned in and I enjoyed every minute of it. It was filling. I felt great for a few months and then I didn't feel so great. Um, I wasn't really doing a true medical keto diet. So we're not talking about an 80% fat diet, like if you're treating seizures or something like that. But this was a lot of fat in my diet and my stomach started hurting. I ate this way for far longer than I should have because I was convinced it was the right thing to do. And my body was just stupid for not feeling as magical as it should feel on keto. It sounds really crazy, right? So I can't tell you how many times that I have done the I should despite not feeling good or for things not working in my body. Something I am personally working on, but also, we teach young women and men to ignore their bodies starting at a really young age. Think about the messaging you got growing up. Be polite, clean your plate. Well, what if you're not full? You have to eat this vegetable. Well, what if it makes my tummy hurt? Sit still for 6 hours at this desk. What if my body needs to move? So I digress. Getting back on topic here. This is your permission right here and right now. If you are eating in a way that doesn't feel good in your body, stop. Don't should anymore. I didn't know it at the time, but I was on birth control for almost 20 years. And women who are on hormonal birth control have a 30% increase in developing gallbladder disease than women who do not take birth control. So I didn't develop full gallbladder disease, but my body was not digesting fat well at all. I got terrible stabbing pains in my stomach. I obviously ignored this and kept going. And that led me to developing Candida. So enter our next diet, which is the Candida low carb diet. And I guess some of you are probably like, what do you mean candida and high fat? So candida is an overgrowth that comes from fermenting carbs in your gut. But upstream, why are the carbs fermenting and not processing? So any kind of digestion problems can lead to this situation. And for me, it was fat. It took a really long time to figure this out. I was on a candida low carb diet for a long time and it sucked. Basically no carbs, processed or otherwise, no starchy vegetables, no grains, no legumes, no fruit, no sugar, no fermented foods, and no alcohol. It it's as terrible as it sounds. I was literally counting out like 50 grams of carbs a day. That is not a lot of carbohydrate. I mean, that's like you get carbs from eating vegetables that are not starchy vegetables. Like that's what you get from eating green beans and broccoli all day long. So I did that and a bunch of combinations of antimicrobials, which is a common way to address a candida overgrowth, but it kept coming back and my hormones were really going sideways and I just felt terrible, like tanked. It was really hard to work out. I was tired all the time. Things hurt. It was not fun. Um, and if I had looked at my comprehensive lab work earlier, I feel like I could have spotted this gallbladder issue before it cascaded into candida, but hindsight's 50-50. So what happened next? The next conscious diet that I really considered was a bulking diet. And so this is a term that people use when they're talking about increasing food to meet muscle building and strength gains at the gym. I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not competing. I'm not getting in bikinis on stage or anything, but I have found that I feel more mentally and emotionally strong when I'm challenging myself with physical things. So for years, I actually thought that I was super clumsy. And it turns out I was just severely sleep deprived and insomniac for years. So I was constantly tripping, dropping things, breaking things, cutting and burning my hands, and just had terrible hand eye coordination. It was really bad. So after starting out the insomnia, I magically got less clumsy. Who would have thought, right? So what does this bulking diet mean? It basically means that I decided that I wanted to do an experiment at the gym and see how hard I could push and how quickly I could increase the amount of weight that I could lift. So it was planned out. All the timing, the structure, all the exercises were the same. There was a calculated increase in weight over time over the next few months. But in addition to the precision in the lifting schedule and then a very mandatory rest, the big piece was getting enough calories to fuel all of this. And I'm not a big fan of calorie counting. It's annoying. And I personally can get a little obsessive about it. So I like to use it in short bursts as a tool. So some people love calorie counting and they found it incredibly helpful. Again, everybody is different. So what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person. So for me, this is a tool like that I use in short term. And so that is how I use it here. So how does this bulking work? basically what happens is that on an average day, I, manage my calories for weeks, see how much I'm taking, and I average about 1,800 calories plus or minus about 200 calories. So in a week, I might get anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000 calories, depending on the day. So that averages about to 1,800. So for my bulking experiment, I had to get up to 2,600 calories a day. And that is equivalent to a very large additional meal a day. This is hard to do. I already eat 4 meals a day, so I had to bulk out my meals. And a lot of times after dinner, just suck it up and eat more. This was a chore. I use protein powder, but not a lot of other processed foods. And it was extremely challenging to do this without processed foods for me. You have to remember that I am a 5 foot 3.5 tall human being. So that, little. So this is a lot of food for my body to consume. If I had a few inches on that and maybe it was a bigger frame, bigger build, then it wouldn't have been such a push for me. A totally different experience, and the food would have probably reacted differently and produced different results in a larger body. But I think it's important to be aware of context when we talk about food and calories and intake and expenditure. So, why do I do all this after I talked about when things didn't work for you, right? So, it wasn't that I was in pain, I didn't have any GI side effects, and it was actually really working well for my lifting experience. So, the I was getting the results that I wanted. So, it was more so that it was annoying, and the only negative impact is that I kind of felt full all the time. But it also had an end date. This was not like a forever thing. This was purposely meant to be a short period of time, an experiment. And that's exactly what it was. So, the takeaway here is that there is no best perfect diet for everyone. Everybody is different, and every person has different goals, health concerns, and preferences. So, the things that I learned are that cutting out an entire food group is a great way to cut calories, but you have to do it mindfully because where the calories come from matters. It is really hard to overconsume calories when you're only eating foods from whole food form. Don't get me wrong, it can absolutely be done, but it really is a lot of work. Extremes can be useful tools, but they aren't great for long term health. And my final takeaway is your grandma was probably right. Now, if we're talking about my specific grandma, not right. She was perfectly willing to exchange McDonald's for silence so she could watch the PGA Tour. But grandmas in general, pretty smart women. They've got knowledge, wisdom, perspective. They know what their mother and grandmother taught them. And most likely, there's a little bit of family kookiness in there, but probably a lot of common sense pearls in there. So, where did I land? After making the rounds of the diet fads, I landed back straight in the middle. What does that mean? I eat more now than I have in the past. I think about how my body really feels and how I'm fueling her because she's hungry. Um, I eat all the land meats. I try to include white fish and scallops, but I'm not a huge fan of seafood. I eat most of the vegetables. I really love potatoes, and they love me. I like fruit and have it 1 to 2 times a day when it's in season. I love beans, love legumes, and I use them every day. I don't do well with grains, so I mostly avoid them. I keep my sugar intake low. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but for me, it triggers candida. And after you have experienced chronic yeast infections, no one is excited to revisit that moment of their life. So I don't. I really love chocolate. I eat it every day. And this is what works for my body. I know that it works because I feel good and I can see it in my labs. My inflammation markers are super low. My blood sugar is very stable. My hormones are balanced. So, data plus how you feel really equals the sweet spot. This is where we want to go. So, where does that leave you? Perimenopause is a transition. Hormones fluctuate. Your body experiences real changes and it's dynamic. But what you can control is how you listen to your body and getting the data that you need to understand what your body is trying to tell you. So, your body isn't being difficult just for fun. It's sending you smoke signals. Maybe it's anxiety, brain fog, fatigue, digestive issues. Maybe you've got some energy crashes. These aren't character flaws, they're messages. And you have really two choices here. You can keep guessing and keep trying different diets and keep hoping that something clicks, or you can really work on getting a roadmap from personalized lab work. This is exactly what functional practitioners are trained for, finding the root cause. Why is there anxiety? What's causing this brain fog? Where is the fatigue coming from? And most importantly, how can we support your unique body? This is where personal labs come as your secret weapon. We're not talking about a basic panel where your doctor just runs it once a year and says, everything looks normal. We're talking about comprehensive look at those labs, sometimes ordering additional labs to show what that's actually happening in your body with your hormones, with your blood sugar regulation, with your inflammation, and your nutrient status. So if you already have lab work sitting in a drawer, buried somewhere in your patient portal, let's review that together. I can help you understand what those numbers actually mean for your perimenopause experience and create a plan that works for your body, not against it. Because you deserve to feel good in your body and you shouldn't have to try 5 different diets to get there. Can you do me a favor? If this was helpful, share it with one person who might need to hear it today. Our bodies didn't come with a user manual, and this perimenopause thing can feel confusing and lonely. But you're not alone, you're not crazy, and you're definitely not broken. And maybe someone in your life needs that reminder too. Let's spread the word and be kind to each other and ourselves. Now, the legal bit. I'm a nutritionist, but I'm not your nutritionist. This podcast is for information and education only. No client relationship is formed. Always seek medical advice when necessary. I'll see you next Wednesday morning.